This video is all about answering the question, how much house can you actually afford based on your income? As I started buying my own home, I was going back and forth in my head with all these questions like, how much house can I actually afford? Am I gonna regret this later? Am I really ready to buy a home? I know a lot of people are worried about the same stuff today. And with housing prices up over 45% over the last 5 years, it's more important than ever to get this decision right. That's why in this video, I'm gonna give you a clear framework how to approach the question, how much house can you actually afford? One of the most common guidelines you'll hear when shopping for a home is the 28-36 rule. That first number, 28, just means that your housing costs shouldn't be more than 28% of your gross income. Now, gross income is your income before taxes and other deductions come out of your paycheck. So generally it's gonna be more than your take-home pay. Banks are gonna use this threshold when deciding on how much to lend you. The second number, 36, just means that your total debt payments, including that mortgage, shouldn't be more than 36% of that gross income number. So this includes the mortgage, but also things like student loans, credit cards, auto loans, anything else you need to pay on a monthly basis, that's debt. If you're unsure about your gross income number, let's quickly figure it out. If you're paid a salary, go ahead and use that as your starting number. For our friends who are paid hourly, take your hourly wage and multiply it by 2,000. That's gonna give you a rough estimate. From there, add in your bonuses, or if you have any additional income from RSUs or other stock options. Once you know your annual gross income, divide it by 12 to get your monthly amount. Multiply that by 0.28 and you'll see your maximum housing payment under the 28-36 rule. If you multiply it by 0.36, you'll see that total debt payment number. Now, here's what it looks like in practice. If I'm someone who makes $120,000 per year, that means I make $10,000 per month. And my maximum housing payment under this rule will be $2,800 per month with a total debt limit of $3,600 per month. Now that $2,800 number doesn't just include my mortgage, but it also includes things like property tax and insurance. If you make $240,000 per year, so double the income, $20,000 per month for a maximum housing payment of $5,600 per month and total debt payments of $7,200 per month. So you can see as income doubles, your total payments double as well. To make this even easier, let's walk through a few simple examples of home prices and see where the sweet spot is for you. Let's start with a $250,000 house. Then we'll jump up to $500,000 and even $1 million, and you can see how the numbers change. For this example, I'm assuming a 20% down payment on the home and a fixed mortgage across 30 years at 6.5% interest rate. We'll also assume 1% per year for both taxes and insurance. Now, the numbers on the home you're shopping for will almost certainly look a little bit different, but this is just gonna give us a good baseline to start from. So on that $250,000 home, it would be a mortgage of $200,000. That's gonna be a principal and interest payment of $1,264 per month. 1% for insurance and taxes equals $208 per month each for a total housing payment of $1,681. The income required to support this payment is $6,000 per month or roughly $72,000 per year. I'll put the numbers on the screen now for the $500,000 home and the $1 million home. You can see as the price of the home doubles, the income required to support these payments is also going to double, with $144,000 per year required to support the payment on a $500,000 home and $288,000 per year required to support the payment on the $1 million home. That is the 28% rule in action. It's good as a general guideline, but it ignores some big costs of home ownership that can end up leaving you squeezed if things don't go perfectly. I like a simpler approach that gives you more breathing room. That's why I use 25% rather than 28% when examining these scenarios. In my opinion, following the 28% rule blindly can leave somebody overextended if unexpected things occur. So it's important to understand your unique situation before making one of the biggest decisions of your life. I want to show you what it looks like if you aim to keep your costs under 25% of your gross income. And if you include some of the hidden costs of home ownership, things like maintenance, HOA fees, other insurance policies you might want to get like earthquake or flood, as well as factoring in any improvements that you want to do on the house later. I like 25% better because it's not just about what the bank says you can afford. It's about making sure your housing payment doesn't end up eating up so much of your income that's just gonna leave you feeling stretched every month. That little bit of extra space is gonna give you the room to save money that you wanna save, maybe travel more, or just enjoy life to the fullest on a day-to-day basis. Throughout my time of working with people, I've seen lenders approve folks up to 40 or even 45% of their gross income, far exceeding the 28% rule. To make matters worse, they're not even including those hidden costs of home ownership. So just because the bank tells you that you can afford it doesn't mean it's a good idea. A higher housing payment can end up leaving you house poor. It's going to take away from everything else that matters in your life. To get a clearer picture of this, let's walk through some examples in our financial software and see how much the price of a home changes what someone pays across the year. We're going to start with our friend Hannah. Here in our financial planning hub, you can see I've set up 3 goal cards for Hannah. She's got properties consisting of $550,000, $700,000, and even $1 million. If I open up these cards, you're going to see the purchase price along with assumptions for taxes, insurance, as well as a maintenance assumption. Now, if we flip over to Hannah's income, you'll see she's earning $200,000 per year. Now, keep in mind, this is a simplified profile here in the software. It could just as easily be 2 people earning a combined total of $200,000 per year. We've also included that she's saving 10% into her 401k to get her employer match, and she's spending $6,500 on everything else in her life per month that isn't housing. Let's take a look at Hannah's current cash flow. Right now, she's renting for $4,000 per month, and that means she's spending 24% of her monthly income on housing. On this screen, you can see how her income's flowing in on the left, and then it goes to the various categories throughout her life, like living expenses, housing, taxes, and her savings down there in blue. If there is a small surplus, we're just gonna assume that gets spent for now. Now, let's test out what happens when she buys that $700,000 house. This scenario is roughly following the 28% rule. We're going to jump to the year 2027 because the plan assumes the purchase happens next year in 2026. 2027 is a better view of her normal steady budget once she's settled into her new home. She's gotten some modest raises in her income, and it's now up to $212,000. Here, after purchasing the $700,000 home, her housing costs represent 30% of her gross income. It's a little bit above that 28% rule because we've included the hidden cost of home ownership, maintenance. Overall, this is still going to work. She's able to maintain that 401k savings, which is required to get her employer match, which is great. But what I'm concerned about here for Hannah is the rest of her budget looks a little squeezed. Because she used most of her cash on the down payment on her home, and her budget is so tight, she's not going to be able to replenish that emergency savings in case something goes wrong with her new house. She's in a little bit of a pickle here. She's got to figure out how to earn more, spend less, or give up that free money in her 401k from her employer by not contributing to the retirement plan. It's not a great set of options for someone who just wants to spend time enjoying their new home. Let's see now what happens when she stretches the budget, borrows up to 40% of her gross income, and goes for that $1 million home. Her annual housing costs jumped to $92,000, almost double what she was paying in rent. The big problem here is she can no longer contribute that 10% to her 401k, let alone replenish her emergency fund. The trade-off here makes her long-term plan unsustainable. She'll be working much longer in life to support a housing decision she made in her 30s. Finally, here's a scenario following my more conservative 25% rule. Hannah purchases the smaller home. It's in the same neighborhood and it only costs $550,000. Now with this purchase, Hannah's costs are more manageable. She's able to keep saving that 10% into her 401k, and on top of that, she's able to free up $1,000 per month. After building back up her savings, that extra margin could go to more traveling if she wishes, she could do upgrades on her home, or just some additional investing in a brokerage account. Here, Hannah's going to be in a much more comfortable position going forward. Now, when we zoom out on the 3 scenarios and take a look at them, the $1 million home is just simply too expensive for Hannah at this time in her life. It causes her plan to run out of money unless she plans to work until the age of 80. So let's quickly compare the $700,000 and the $550,000 homes. Choosing the $550,000 home and investing the money she's saving leads to an additional $2.4 million at the end of her plan, or roughly $820,000 extra at the time of retirement at 62. That kind of difference is going to make a huge difference for her quality of life in retirement, or could even allow her to retire a little bit earlier. So you can see in this example how keeping your housing costs manageable is one of the biggest levers for building long-term wealth. Instead of just blindly relying on a 28% rule you hear, aim to keep your total housing costs under 25% and always consider the extra costs of home ownership when making this decision. Now, 25% is an aggressive target, I'll admit that, but it's worth aiming for because getting the big decisions right once is often easier than making day-to-day decisions trying to cut and save the same amount of money every day. You'd have to eat out a lot less or give up your daily rituals like coffee or maybe your subscription to your favorite gym just to match the money saved by keeping your housing costs lower. Now, if you choose to go with 28%, that's going to be your call. Just know that it might crowd out your ability to put those dollars to work elsewhere in your life. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Jordan Drinkhouse. Feel free to subscribe if you want more videos about saving, investing, or planning your future.